Afternoon, everyone. We are now live again as we're getting closer to the actual festival. We're making sure we are lined up for a lot of films to go over. I see Gilles is tuned in. Nice to see you, Gilles, one of our official jury. Dorian, as well, a local filmmaker as well. So today we're going to be talking with Jordan Oram, one of our official jury members and a very well-known music producer as well. And amongst some others, over the next 2 weeks, the festival is coming up. It's actually October 26th and the 27th. 26th and the 27th will actually be our screening days. So we're going to be screening over 140 fashion films from 37 countries. We're quite proud of not only the Canadian content, but the content that we've got around the world. And then on the 27th at exactly noon Toronto time, it'll be 9 o'clock for Vancouver and LA, noon here in Toronto and in New York, 5 o'clock p.m. in London, and 6 p.m., which will be Paris, Milan, and Cape Town, South Africa. A lot of submissions this year from South Africa as well. So we making sure that the time zones work for all of our global filmmakers to be able to tune in. It's very much in production now, but we'll be live then. So it'll be actually a total of 18 award categories that we're showcasing, from Best Commonwealth Fashion Film of the Year, which is actually sponsored by the Commonwealth Fashion Council out of the UK, to Best Canadian Film, to Best Cinematography, to Best Hair, Best Makeup, and obviously the big one being the Fashion Film of the Year. So I see Jordan has just joined us. So as soon as I get a request from Jordan, I'll add him in. Hey, Jeffrey, long time no chat. Nice to see joining in on the chat. Jeffrey, a longtime friend and stylist within North American fashion industry. A world of respect for Jeffrey, and we're just gonna go live now with Jordan. See how his connection. See if it's better than mine. Tune in here, see if I ramble a little bit more there. Jordan and I had a quick catch up about an hour ago just on the festival itself and comments that he's been going through, whatever have you. Hey, Jordan, how are you?
What's going on, mister?
Hey, you beat me to it.
It's all good. How are you?
Good. So I did a bit of an intro, just basically on CANIFFF, and I'll get you to hold tight. I'm actually going to do an intro to you now. I wanted to wait until you were live. You've got quite the impressive CV. Not only on your website, but there's just, all you need to do is Google Jordan Oram, and there's just so much content out there on you. So I'm going to do a bit of reading here, so just bear with me.
Good.
Jordan Oram, a Canadian filmmaker whose cinematography work includes feature film, television, music, videos, and commercials. From redefining icons to establishing benchmarks of new, his imagery is a tapestry created by connecting bold, broad strokes with the intricacies of culture, lifestyle, and authenticity. An extension of his rich and textured upbringing, Oram seeks to sew together dynamic imagery with a sense of simplicity. He is highlighting and amplifying everyday life, giving context, meaning, and reason to fleeting moments that flicker, sealing them in celluloid forever. That was beautifully written. Yeah, I didn't write it. As Jordan says, my work is meant to be felt, like history repeating itself. Jordan has worked with a few of the following artists that you may recognize: Coldplay, Drake, Post Malone, J Balvin, Usher, Snoop Dogg, just to name a few. We would be here for a good hour if I was literally naming off everybody you've worked with. And with that, thank you, Jordan, for joining me live on a chat.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And thank you for reading my my bio, because the person who wrote it, Shane Sterling, we worked effortlessly on that to ensure that it captured the essence, pure and purity.
Yeah, you really fine tuned it well. I've read bios that are literally paragraphs upon paragraphs, and they're incredible backgrounds and incredible people as well. But how do you really highlight, not only what you've done, but what you're passionate about it, and you can tell that right off the bat. And obviously, your work speaks for itself and the various things. So no, I love the poetry, of your
Oh,
bio. It's so well done.
love it. Thank you.
So and start things off, we're still in this health crisis. We're back in a lockdown here in Toronto. How are you dealing with it? I know you travel a lot. I'm curious on how you're dealing with this health crisis.
I've been dealing with it, quite frankly, quite good. I've been traveling for work for the last 2 months now. I'm currently in Los Angeles, in between work. It's been really interesting, getting my health and prioritizing it has been a huge help for me, because with the environment that we were in before, it was constant work, 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 work. And then you got to shut down and get to know yourself a little bit better, and really get to master what you're good at by spending time with yourself. So it's been good, just relaxing and trying to
Yeah.
enjoy the time that I have to myself.
Wow. Are you actually in LA right now?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow. Okay.
I'm in Hollywood. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I know we were back and forth, and you still travel quite a bit back and forth as well, because you actually lived in LA for a while, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I moved to LA after I shot a feature, and then I went back to Toronto when the pandemic hit,
Okay.
to be closer to family and healthcare and safety. And then I moved. Well, I haven't moved back, but I've just been kind of going from job to job for the last 2.5 months.
Wow, wow, no, I love that. So we met through a mutual friend, PR director Mario Tassone, and I cannot thank you enough for being an official judge with Canadian International Fashion Film Festival this year. And all of our judges come from a wide variety of backgrounds in both fashion and in film. And honestly, we're truly honored to have you. What's the process been like for you as an official judge?
For me, it's been a new experience, going so many years submitting my work to festivals. Most recently, I had a film in Toronto International Film Festival. So being on the other end of the spectrum, it's been really interesting to watch the work that's being submitted for festivals like this, and to look at it from a different dynamic view, because I get to look at the work and appreciate it in a much different way, which is awesome. So watching all the projects, from the student films to the social economic sources to Commonwealth to films that were subtitled, for me was enjoyable, because I had to sit down and really dissect it in the category that it was submitted for, and really get to appreciate the work that was going into it, because I can look at it from a much different perspective, understanding, like, even from the editing perspective, how meticulous a frame for frame edit has to be really good. So it was quite therapeutic for me.
Yeah, I remember you and I chatting on the phone last week, and I think it was the film I Say More Than Words, and it was filmed in a one of the most beautiful libraries in the world, if I'm not mistaken. It's in Baltimore, and you're like, Roger, I can't figure out how they did the lighting on this, and I wouldn't have even have thought that. I saw it for its creativeness and music and the storyline, whatever have you, and it was after our phone call. I'm like, yeah, actually, that was a massive space, but you see things through a different set of eyes for sure.
Right. And that film specifically, was definitely one of my, it was up there in my list of top films for the festival, because it was executed so well. I think the director had such a defined voice in how he approached the film,
Yeah.
from the concept to completion to ideation to execution. You can really see every key member of the team really scale their work there,
Yeah.
because it's a large space, and to really dress the space properly, it's not that easy. Whatever budget they had, it was definitely a task. So they did a phenomenal job.
Does that bug you now that you've got such a great background in filmmaking? When you're out with friends watching a film or a TV show, and there's certain things that literally, bug you, or it's like, it just killed the series for me, or the writing or the lighting or whatever have you. Now that you've got that trained eye.
It depends, because I spent so much of my earlier stages of my career really getting to know the cinematographers who shoot everything. So if I like something, the first thing I do is DM the director of photography and say, "Hey, great work. We'd love to know more about your approach and how you executed." Or the director or someone that stood out, I'll make myself known in their presence, because I appreciate their work. And it's
Yeah.
not more of a collaboration; it's more of appreciation. It doesn't really bug me. I really am a student to the game, and I really think that, respect is due where it's earned. So I never try to belittle people's work. Sometimes I dislike it, but that's just taste.
Sure.
That's not my problem. That's not theirs. It's just they have different interests in their
Yeah.
films. So I try to just always show a positive light to whatever the work is, and ensure that I'm, showing support and love wherever I can.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, for me, and I, aside from us now find my word, with the Canadian International Passion Film Festival, and seeing just so many aspects, and as a passion broker myself and consulting to the film industry, and sitting in writing meetings and whatever have you, for me it's the writing, it's the storyline. You can have the most beautiful lighting and cinematography, which is one of your passions, but if the writing and the story is not there, it's like, oh, it just kills me.
Yeah.
Some bad writing. What's the writing like for you? Obviously, you're working. You're most famous for your work in music. So
Totally.
the artist's work is speaking for themselves. But what do you find from that standpoint when it is the written word?
I like when I can read it and not stop while I'm reading a script. There's nothing better than getting through a project and being able to see it visually, because everything was considered, from the location, from the time of day, to the character description, to the location descriptions, all of those things that can paint a tapestry for me to engulf myself into that world. That for me is the most enthusiastic. Or when I can Google something that they referenced and understand that it wasn't just thrown into the script, it was referenced before it was put into the script.
Right.
It depends on the type, the genre. If it's a drama script, or if it's a comedy script, or a biopic, it has a different language. And I think that a lot of people just try to throw things on paper to finish, 2,500 words, when in theory, what you should be doing is making sure that every word has significant meaning to what you're looking to show.
Right.
And I encourage anyone writing a script to read it to themselves as a viewer as they're writing it. Because a lot of people submit scripts and treatments, and they have spelling mistakes or errors, or they're not concise across the board.
Right.
And I think it does affect the overall vision when you're trying to communicate what your vision is to your team.
Sure.
So if it's not thorough, it can really hinder the progress of the script. So I try to be pretty anal.
You do a lot of commercial work, and I see Lindsay is joined us as well. City Lights Linz, who actually has a Canadian film in for the official selection this year. How do you find the writing of the script different between, let's say, a Drake video to a commercial work that you're doing? Is the storyline less secondary because the music is then telling the story compared to a commercial?
It depends on the storyteller. Personally, it depends on the artist that's making it. Oftentimes when you work with Drake, the idea is so large because he has an idea and wants to execute it in a very short period of time. Where with a commercial, you have agency and boards that you have to follow strategically because of guidelines that follow with the brands. So categories and commercials are a lot more streamlined from the top down. Whereas on the flip side of music videos, it's really built from the bottom up, because you have limited resources most of the time, or you have resources, not limited, depending on the caliber of work that you're doing. You often have resources that you're capped at. So you've got to you have to execute a lot differently for a music video than a commercial.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the approach. I love to get to know my crew and the project and the specifics of what we're getting into, versus a music video where you walk onto a set and it could be something totally outrageous that you never spoke about, but you've got to execute something in 12 hours.
Right.
So you don't have much time of dialogue and banter back and forth. And that's what helps when you have a relationship with the director. You get to throw it back to them and say, hey, let's just deliver a product that everyone's going to love.
Yeah. That you're segueing into my next question. Do you get to actually pick your own team or the people you're working for?
Absolutely. I need to work with people that I need to work with. It's hard for me sometimes to work with people that I haven't worked with before, or have rapport, or have a conversation with. If I've never worked with you before, that's great. We have both an opportunity to prove ourselves to each other and get to know each other as humans first. But I pride myself on reaching out to my crew and getting to know them, getting to know their strengths, their weaknesses, their expectations, and vice versa. Because I don't want to set people into a blaze when I'm asking for something in a short period of time.
Right.
And oftentimes, you have a crew that you've worked with so many times. They just know how you work, and the environment that you work with them, it really helps the product, because there's a synergy, that happens when you have chemistry with somebody.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
whether it be a gaffer, an AC, or Steadicam operator.
yeah, I love that, and I'm going to dive deeper into that. We've got Alex has just joined us, Hitchett, who's also a Toronto-based a filmmaker as well. And as we're talking about teams, you know, it's Alex and Lindsay or others, but for you, you know, educate me. What would your team look like on set?
They're black, first of all. I often try to work with people that understand where I come from the dialogue. And because I'm really an advocate for everything in the community, for you know, I want to really diversify the industry of
Mhm.
all races, colors, shapes, sexes, sizes, and industry levels.
Right.
Oftentimes they have to have, I shouldn't say they're black. They have to be great at what they do, or they have to be willing to be greater at what they were yesterday.
Mhm.
For me, it's about pushing the bar forward.
Right.
So I want to exceed the director, production company, producer's expectations by delivering an exceptional product every single job. I
Yeah.
work every job as if it's my last,
Yeah.
because with COVID going around, we never know when we're going to work again.
Mhm.
So for me, I like to challenge my crew to just be as best as they can be for themselves before they do it for me.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes when I hire someone, I tell them I'm working for them.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to feel like they're working for me, because at the end of the day, they ultimately are working to pay their bills, not mine.
Right.
So I try to ensure that the result of, you know, our environment is conducive of what I like to project. So I
Mhm.
do a lot of mentorship. I'm currently working on a mentorship program in Canada right now for filmmakers of color,
Oh
because I
wow.
feel that, yeah, we really need to build up people and build them to the next level. Oftentimes, I love having women on set because they change the dynamic of the entire set. They oftentimes are more meticulous, depending on what position they're in, and they balance out the egos. You know, it's great to hear from everyone, all shapes, sizes, and forms on set, whether it be PAs, and I love everybody's input in terms of, you know, what the project could be like.
Yeah, and it's an astute comment. You know, when I was running my agency on King West, my staff were, they were always, it just worked out. You know, the best of the best, but they were always women, and partly because, and I don't want to stereotype, but I do believe women are more meticulous on detail orientated than men as a whole. I am definitely not a detail guy. I've got my strengths, and detail is definitely one of my weaknesses. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's one of those things that's, and kudos to you to be able to pick out, you know, where your strengths and weaknesses are, and you complement them with others. Um,
Thank you.
we we were also talking last week and about fashion films, and you know, you made the comment, you know, Rod, why aren't fashion films a thing in Canada? And I actually loved that comment, because in Europe they've been around for 10, 12 years, still somewhat relatively new in North America. And you know, and thanks to you, you know, for joining and bringing your clout to the jury, and your voice to not only filmmaking, but you know, the world of fashion film. And music videos have always had that strong fashion element on storytelling. So where do you see the future collaborations between fashion film and music?
I'm surprised there isn't more fashion films coming out of Canada because of our urban landscape of style and fashion as a whole. There's so many independent designers that have incredible work that's recognized internationally, but I feel like we have to take more risks. I think myself, I try to pride myself on being the first to prove by example, and I don't want to have people look at me and say, "Oh my gosh, he's doing so many great things." I'm like, I'm doing them because no one else is. That's why I'm trying to do things that are outside the box.
Right.
So even doing this was a first time opportunity for me. And I had to look at that as something that I can scale and bring where I come from, where I'm going. And that's the only thing that I can do, you know? So looking at working in the music video industry, personifically, we look at how many influencers are in our industry. And we think, well, so many brands are already recognizing these musicians for wearing the beautiful fashion. But why isn't there more films that are representative of the fashion that they're wearing?
Right.
And you don't need a lot of money to produce a fashion film. Some of the films in this festival didn't have a great budget, but they had an incredible execution and great style, great
Yeah.
taste. But I do think we need to think outside the box and stop being so afraid to fail. We have to fail as fast as possible, because in Canada we're often seen as the safe people that don't take as many chances. But the minute you take a chance, it's risk versus reward. You
Yeah.
know, if you have something to say it, and if you get it, you'll get it. So it's a matter of, if you do it, it's either do it or don't. If not, kick rocks.
Yeah.
And if you do, let's just, you know, push the bar.
Yeah, and well said. I mean, the talent pool we have, in Canada, let alone Toronto, is second to none. I was interviewing a Reese filmmaker from Italy 2 weeks ago, and he's actually living here in Toronto because Toronto's, I can't remember the name of it, Petion, I think it is the one of the number one CGI studios in the world, based here in
Crazy.
Toronto for doing CGI, and he produces a number of fashion films as well. So I agree with your point. It's not that we don't have the talent. It's about pushing that envelope and trying something new and reaching out and collaborating. And again, to your point, I'm sure you're overdosed with watching and judging fashion films, but the 61 fashion films that you watched, some were done on a zero budget, and some had $20,000, $30,000 budgets as well.
Right. And kudos to you for accepting a lot of these films outside the box, because there were some films that I was like, oh, I wonder how this is going to go based on the description.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watch it, I'm like, wow, this is such great taste level. Without the budget, there's some films that were shot on iPhones. And I love films that were shot with limited resources, because they often have a defined voice and a specific point of view that should be respected, because you're not shooting with massive film cameras, you're shooting with whatever's available. A lot of the student films that were coming out were shot in isolation with very limited resources, but you could feel their passion on screen.
Yeah. One of my faves was called Stay Home. I think it was called Stay Home. And it was 6 countries around the world, and they each had to submit their own video on what they were doing in isolation. But and obviously one person was then collecting it all and editing. It was just so brilliantly done, like for literally next to nothing.
Totally. There was a lot of, it's so funny because there was a lot of relationships in those edits, because there was like everyone spending time with a significant partner. And it's good to see that people are sharing more and more of that online, which I think is beautiful in the art.
I'm curious your take on, so passion films as a whole are 1 minute to, our rules are 15 minutes in length, but really the majority of them are 1 minute to 5 minutes in length, where your incredible background producing music videos are traditionally 3 to 5 minutes. They're pretty religious on their time frame. How did you find that difference in going, what, that was only 60 seconds, or that was only 1 minute and 20 seconds, when you're so used to telling a story of a musician's song or an artist's song over 3 to 5 minutes? How did you notice that difference, going, I wanted more, or wow, they told me everything I wanted to in 1:20?
Yeah, I actually wanted, well, with fashion, you're selling a product oftentimes. So advertising attention spans are very short. So with consideration to fashion being associated with their storytelling, it didn't have the luxury of bringing the story to full-fledged. But I do think that there was a lot of films that I watched that I was just like, I either have to watch it again or expect there to be a longer director's cut. There was a lot of films where I wanted a lot more fleshed out. But understanding that, you have to get the point across.
Right.
But it's nice. It's nice to see that. I know how difficult it is to let go of shots that you're attached to.
Yeah.
So kudos to all the filmmakers that had to let go of selected shots to make the edit work for what their expectations were with the delivery expectation.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the word editing. It's actually one of our awards categories as well. But one thing I've really learned through this process is, and I've been involved with CANIFFF for the last 3 years before we acquired it earlier this year, but being involved with it and literally being overdosed on, I think we received over 160 films this year, is that point of editing, is just such an incredible craft on its own, on being able to know when to stop, when to move forward. And I'm sure there's some tears on the cutting room floor where, some of those scenes were just fantastic, but it can't make the cut, when you're into fashion.
Right.
One thing with a movie, you're an hour and a half to 2 hours, you've got a little bit of a play. But yeah, when you're into such a short time frame, the editing is just an art form of its own.
Absolutely. There was a lot of films in my comments where I could tell it was storyboarded, because it was so meticulous on how it was cut with the song, with the audio, with the narration that was going on. So I understand that, a lot of people had to really think about these films before they submitted them, versus there is some times where you have stock footage that you can put together and edit and put it out. But that's not, a lot of these films were very meticulously crafted. So yeah, I appreciated a lot of them.
Yeah. I'm actually going to take, we're going to spend a few minutes on Like, this is how detailed Jordan was on comments for his films. So October 27th is our actual award show. It's going to be on the website live. I think where you are, it's going to be, well, you may be back in Toronto. On the 27th of October, it's going to be noon in Toronto, 9 a.m. in Vancouver, LA, and we have quite a European following. So it'll be 5 p.m. in London, 6 p.m. in Milan, Paris, and Cape Town. But for you, one of 12 judges, and our judges literally came from Amy Werner, who is the one of the fashion writers for Vogue to Italy, Giosandro Cantori, the editor-in-chief of Bespoke magazine out of Milan, Frank Anderson, the former executive chairman of Network Media Group in Beverly Hills. It just goes on and on and on. Randall Graham, the creative director of
Incredible.
Anyway, go on. You literally watched 61 films across 18 categories with 7 nominees per. So I'm just going to read some of your favorite comments, and we're actually going to talk about a few because I'd love the detail you went into, because we share these with the filmmakers, whether they won or whether they didn't win. It's about feedback, you know, from that they value from you, you know, who's got such an incredibly trained eye. One of them here, Unbound Revival, you know, with much consideration, deliberation, you know, one of your favorite films in that category. How they conveyed their imagery, the adaptation of space due to COVID. I'm just giving Cole's Notes versions here. Selfie Absorbed, you know, another Canadian film. Brilliantly crafted narrative of today's economy. Filter Face, if you remember Filter Face, where the dancers, and they're covered in gauze, and it was weird.
So good.
But it was brilliantly
good.
At the end, you actually saw what the story was on Filter Face, if I'm not mistaken, out of the UK. And I'm sure for you, starting to watch these, going, where's this going? Are they going to tell me right away? Inhuman Love, which has won awards around the world, basically saving Mother Earth is what it was, and all of the costumes designed for that fashion film, the music score designed for that fashion film out of Taiwan. Alex, this film is a true testament to fashion film. I fell in love with how this film was set up, with Alex telling the woman about reliving and working through her trauma. Lemaire, the one of the kids talking about global waste. Lemaire left me speechless. From the opening shot to the last frame, this film had me interested in both the film and the overall message. Awake. Awake actually has the famous actress from, I'm just trying to think of her name, from Warrior Nun. I don't know if you noticed that.
No, I didn't notice, but she was great.
It was honestly the virtual effects in that film were just absolutely ingrained, and the social message at the end of it was just absolutely amazing. I say more than words. Obviously, for Georgetown Optical, like a blatant ad for Georgetown Opticians, and Georgetown Opticians in the U.S. every year spend a ton on promoting fashion films, and they do their commercials for fashion film. I say more than Deep Beneath the Skin out of Germany, The Herder out of South Africa.
That was one of by far my favorites, quite frankly. That film hit me every single time I watched it. Just the audio and the visual of it, the narrative of it coming from South Africa, it just hit roots where I was just like, oh, I need to see more of what this feels like, you know? Great film. Incredible film.
I think the music 3 seconds in, and Martine, our submissions director, Martine was like, I'm there. I feel like
and
it was actually a lookbook for Kate Pipkin, designers, and literally a 24-year-old designer, fresh out of school, and that was her collection. And she asked Will Venter, you know, can we do a fashion film to showcase my collection? And it has been sweeping awards across the fashion film circuit around the world. But just, oh my gosh,
so well done,
so beautifully done. Interlude, and you said, being a cinematographer myself, I've grown to love and appreciate all of the films in this category. But being I just have to choose one, you know, your choice was Interlude. Perfectly executed, a girl dreaming of being around the world and wanted to take a personal interlude to see, you know, where her mind was taking her. the end of social distancing with Victor Claremont. I'm actually interviewing Victor tomorrow at this time.
Loved that film.
Out of Spain. So Victor Claremont also did La Mer. And then due to this
Oh,
social
wow.
distancing in the world, he created this social distancing and edited all of his fashion films to create this film called
Wow. Yeah, that I had to give that one best editing because I knew it was between that one and the other one that was out of, I think, Ukraine or Germany. I know what it takes to do that with the moving slider. I know what it takes to line those up per second, and it was connected perfectly. When it connected, it was euphoria.
Wow.
And that for me, I was like coming through social distancing where it was the end of it. It was the message conveyed from the beginning to end. It gave you the synopsis and climax in the beginning of the title, but it made you wait like a minute of the closing of the gap.
Yeah.
And it was a constant stream of just what is going to happen when this thing connects. And when it connected, the fireworks exploded. And it was so beautifully crafted.
Wow. I love your
that's the same director who, that's
La
the
Mer.
same director who gave us La Mer. And that's just that film for me with kids having a social message. It's scary to think that, like I was telling you, I could learn more from kids in 2 minutes than I could from reading Google for 20 years.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to go into depth to find facts that aren't advertised.
Right.
I'm only going to most likely see what's the first thing on the first page of Google search. But those stats were just breathtaking in forms of global warming and overall message.
Yeah, I mean, and it was so simply done. Great color blocking throughout. The kids were just wearing a black dress shirt, is all the kids wearing the same. But then, the black oil or drop into all the glasses.
And the goldfish, yeah.
Like so visually engaging that one was.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, to your point, kids being able to sell that message was, and just even the languages that they spoke, it was just absolutely adorable. Yeah, anyway, I could literally go on and on and on of all of your incredible comments, and I have to thank you, for all of these comments that, we're going to be sharing, part of the festival as well. But also afterwards, over the next couple of months, just sharing with filmmakers that won or didn't win, what our official jury thought, where you take Amy Werner with Vogue Paris, she sees things differently, than the way Jordan Oram is going to see it, with a camera crew and whatever have you. So
totally.
So no, I can't thank you enough for such brilliant comments and
anytime.
Yeah,
I think being a filmmaker myself, I love feedback. I'm never one to say, did I do a great job? I know I did a great job, but how could I do a better job? Or what did you like or what didn't you like? Or is there anything that I can improve on for collaboration in our future?
Yeah.
And I think for filmmakers, being honest is the best thing you can ever be for a filmmaker. If their film isn't good, tell them. If their film is phenomenal, tell them.
Yeah.
But don't just say thank you. It's not enough. In the year 2020, where social media and visual advertising is the seniority of everyone's consideration, tell them exactly what you like and what you didn't like.
That's
because and across the board, whether it be the writer, the producer, the editor, the line producer, the executive producer, the PA, the associate PA, anyone that had an opportunity to involve themselves on the production, tell them what they did good or tell them how they can do better.
Yeah,
it goes so far.
Yeah, no, and it's truer words cannot be spoken. Not everybody takes criticism well,
right?
But at the same point, they're the ones entering themselves into a festival, in the hopes of not only winning the laurels, but also learning off of others that are masters of their craft. We have a submission category. It's free for schools free for students, to submit a film into CANIFF. We want to encourage that next generation. So to your point, 100%, it is all about good, positive criticism, because the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that's what was interesting about the 12 jury. I was actually talking with Frank Anderson a few days ago with Network Media Group, former chair in Beverly Hills, and his comment was, Raj, how were all of the 12 jury? Were we all pretty much on the same plane, when it came to our favorites? And just to share with everybody listening, the jury were given a 63-page document that took Martine, our submissions director, over 3 weeks to prepare, with synopsises for each film, links to each film. And so it was a lot of work to ask of the jury. And again, I can't thank you enough, because I know it was a lot of work. But in that, all of your titles or jobs were the same, is, to read the stories and evaluate it for its category, best hair or best music or best cinematography. So on that point, the 12 jury we've got around the world, come from passion of film, but like yourself, a filmmaker, or like a Frank Anderson, who's, their company will finance a $200 million movie, compared to a Tatya Kochie, Argentine model, now a creative director for Buffalo Zine in London. It goes on and on and on. So all of the jury were pretty much the same when it came to the overall categories: best cinematography, best editing, best fashion film, best director. You guys actually, surprisingly, were all pretty much the same with your number 7. So that's where I apologize. That's where I was going to say. So the jury were given the grading, 7 being their favorite film out of 7, 1 being their least favorite film. So the total marks a film could get were 84, and the least marks a film could get were 12. But yeah, those 4 categories, you guys were all pretty consistent on 7s. Where it was really quite fascinating was, best hair, best makeup, best performer, a number of those really creative fields. Yeah, the jury was all over the map on.
Yeah, that was a hard category. Those 4 categories were quite difficult, because there were films that had significant great costume design and great hair. But at the same time, there's some films that weren't in other categories, and they were strong in significant categories. So I think giving the credit where it was due, to really look at the films for like best makeup. I forget what film it was. Hold on, let me see if it was best makeup. There was one image in best makeup where it was deep beneath the skin. There was an image of like a dual eye shadow where the girl's eyes were open and the makeup was around her head or on her face. It was like a double exposure on her face. Wow. I stopped on that image and sent it to like 15 of my friends and said, "This is absolutely phenomenal. Like, this has to win best makeup. Like, this is so well done." Wow. And although there was other films that had, really good plastic and great hair, great lines, great glitter, the little things that take a lot of time care a lot. Like, they matter a lot more to people that are doing it forever. They're sitting there for 6-7 hours painting that on, doing that like meticulous touch-ups, and to appreciate it, it sometimes goes unappreciated most of the time.
Yeah, Martine just asked a question. Did you find it difficult to assign a 7 to just one film within a category? Are there some categories you want to give 3 7s?
Then maybe there was 1 or 2 categories that I wanted to really split the 7. Okay. But when I had that deliberation thought come over me, I had to watch the film again and really think about I had to read the category description all over again and really make sure that I was being true to what the category was looking to answer. Maybe 1 or 2 films, but for the most part, the 7s were unanimous across the board.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, and just even on that comment, the best performer and the best costume design, like we're a fashion film festival, so costume is very much a big part of it, and we're a bit of a purist with the Canadian International Fashion Film Festival, where others around the world are more about lifestyle, with their fashion film festival or fashion, as a state of mind, so to speak. And everybody's different, of where they go with that. So, and I get it, but, we're pretty much purists on, we are a fashion film festival. It should involve some good fashion within it as well. So on that point, the best costume category, is a big one as well. And I'm not going to put you on the spot if you remember any of your.
I'm looking at it right now.
I'm sorry?
I'm looking at my list just to make sure I can recap my brain.
What was the one that captured your eye the best in best costume?
For me, surprisingly, it was The Herder.
Okay.
Surprisingly, just because when I think about where it came from, I know what it feels like to be in a place like South Africa with very limited resources. And when you put on that clothing, it's really a costume, it's armor. Yeah. And that's what a lot of these films had. It was like with the song, with the music that was associated with the film, and the very, very structured cinematography. It was like puncturing watching them look directly through the camera.
Wow.
And they made this with unconventional items.
Yeah.
So this wasn't just textile fabrics that were thrown into a sewing machine and put
Right.
together. This was like draping, this was craftsmanship, this was, tapestry at its finest. And I really wanted to look at the film outside of the box and say, what's conventional of film and fashion and costume design?
Yeah.
This was a very unconventional film where you have these costumes outside with animals. So you get to see where it came from with the fabric. They had there was a field full of sheep,
Yeah.
and they were in the field where the cotton was made of the fabric that they're wearing. It's like I respect that from a very tasteful level.
Yeah.
It also helps that I've been watching Project Runway while I've been watching this.
Yeah.
So it helps, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that one, and then you obviously that's, one of my faves as well. It was just the simplicity of that film was through the roof. I interviewed the filmmaker Will Venter 2 or 3 weeks ago, and even Martine was wondering, was there a wind machine? Because just the way the pieces
So
were
good.
blowing, and it was actually the natural wind. There was no wind machines. It was just the natural breeze
Right.
of the area and the fabric work. And then you've got a film like New Religion, which was quite a
Oh,
long
absolutely
film.
insane.
But I think there was 8 scenes. They talked about the deadly sins, gluttony, and whatever have you.
Yeah.
But the costumes in that film
We're next level. And it felt like it felt like it worked with what the intention of the film was. I looked at it as a very literal composition of what the category was. Like it was so well done to me watching that, but I felt it was stronger in other categories.
Yeah.
But from a costume design place, that work was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
So kudos to New Religion.
As a filmmaker, or heavy in cinematography, where do you see the similarities in fashion and film? In fashion film to music videos.
The focus on what's hot and what's not. The stylist in a music video often gets the most outrageous piece that hasn't been released yet. And the first time you might see it might be in a music video for the first time.
Right.
And with fashion, it's the same thing. Like you want to put out for instance, if a fashion film comes out with the newest released blazer, you don't want to have it seen on a person first. You almost want to see it in a video first, because it's going to reach a bigger audience faster.
Sure.
So I think the similarities on having exclusivity being at the priority of seeing fashion,
right,
is something that we shouldn't take advantage, or we should take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Because they have advertising, they have a marketing budget, but you'll get a better return if you put your brand new jacket or your brand new eco jacket on someone like a Drake and put it out and have 1 billion views,
right,
before the jacket's released online. Sure. It will sell out instantly.
Sure.
The Kylie Jenner effect is what I would call it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's actually what I love about fashion film as well is, it's not, a Drake or an Usher or J Balvin, video
Right.
where they've got 1 billion views, within a few months. Fashion films are literally taking a new approach, because music videos have always been brilliant music videos where, the fashion industry is really going through a bit of a fashion renaissance, as we call it, where, the traditional runway is changing. Traditional magazines, we've listened to are changing as well, where fashion films, are really the new medium, for a brand to showcase their story. And yeah, they've been in music videos for years, and even for movies, how many brands, have been launched, or look at Ray-Ban with Tom Cruise,
right.
The business. I mean, so it's always been there. If you were to produce a fashion film, who would you like to collaborate with?
Fenty, Rihanna. That after watching her
didn't even
fashion
waste
films,
a second on that one. That was like,
no, it's a no-brainer in the year 2020. It's like, I feel really bad for a lot of luxe designers that are in her category, because she's pushed the bar past the bar of consideration. She's taken her iconography as a celebrity, but also as a fashion designer, and gave you taste with perspective. It wasn't like last year where it was just like, hey, look at what I can do. This was a more pared down version of like, Rihanna's human. She has the same issues that we have in the same 24 hours that every other designer has. Right. Her consideration just goes that much further when she thinks about her product on the end user. So right. Her having, bigger set women in her product in luxury wear was phenomenal. Her use of having men in her product is something that a lot of fashion designers don't consider when they're making female garments. So having, and then juxtaposing it and putting it on a streaming platform like Amazon and having music video performances in the middle of her showcasing her fabric textile construction. Why aren't more fashion designers showing their economical reasons behind their textile or behind their fabric choices? So I do think she's pushing the bar, to the level that I would like to see people rise and follow her direction.
Yeah.
And if ever this gets to her team, I'm available for hire for Rihanna at any given day.
Well, I'm sure she's heard of your name. You've done the biggest of the big, so it's literally
Good.
just a matter of time on that one as well.
It's got to manifest it. It's got to manifest.
100%, 100%. Well, and who knows how we go forward with CANIFF and some potential collaborations as well. I actually do look forward to introducing you to Kate Pipkin out of South Africa, who actually did the pieces in the Herder.
Absolutely.
And other ones as well. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to take an awful segue here. VR, AR, extended virtual, extended AR, very much emerging technologies, in the industry as well. You and I can go to the theater and, get a free pair of, 3D glasses and watch a 2-hour movie in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
But, a lot of that technology has not really translated, to the fact that we're now housebound or we're using our computers or our mobile phones, to be watching a short film or whatever have you. So there's still that gap in what the industry is producing compared to the transfer, to you and I as a consumer base per se. As a filmmaker, what are your thoughts on technology for today's consumers and how things are evolving? Like there's some things that, so you take the VR glasses, they just got to be too expensive. And from my understanding, Samsung is actually taking a few steps back from it just because phenomenal technology, but they can't mass market it. They can't mass sell it. How are you finding that within your world as a filmmaker with so much incredible technology out there, but at the end of the day, the consumer wants to see it, view it, and experience it, easily?
In real life. Yeah, I think with wearable, are we speaking in terms of wearable technology and how I feel like that's...
Not wearable at all, just how we view technology. So you
copy.
So you producing a great video that you showcasing, let's say, AR and VR, but I don't want to have to download an app. I don't want to have to throw on, a headset to be able to view virtual reality.
Like I said, I'm quite unorthodox in everything that I do. So I like to say just technology has made consumers lazy because, producers of content have just thrown things out. And for instance, there's a couple designers, I'll throw this back to fashion because it's also referred back to how I use technology as a filmmaker. There is designers that have made glasses where you can go on the website, you can select a glass, you can use your webcam, you can try it on, similar to how an app uses an effect on a cell phone. I think it's unique in the approach, but in the actuality of it, we have too many options in the year 2020. I think people need to be pared down to really think about the products that they're investing in. And there should be more investing in independent workers and cut and sew designers and cut and sew filmmakers. I'll use cut and sew as a filmmaker adjective. But I think that, we've just gotten so lazy in the year 2020 to really consider what is priority and why we invest in anything. Yeah. So I think, pushing the bar as a filmmaker, there's new technology that comes out every day. I, for one, am a filmmaker that has had a successful career, and I don't own a single thing of investing. I don't own a single piece of gear because I don't believe in investing in gear. I just feel like if technology is evolving, why should I invest in a product that's not going to be a great investment in a short period of time? I invest in people. So I like the idea, in film to use it as a tool, but not as a crutch. So many people in the film industry use the most advanced technology and say, hey, look at what I got, versus look at what I can do with nothing. I pride myself of coming from $0 budgets because at the end of the day, I can shoot a $40 million movie or I can shoot a $500 short film. Sure. And it doesn't really oppose how I approach a creative project. Mm-hmm. And it takes creativity to execute. And I think with the use of technology and the crux that we put on these things, socially and economically, it's kind of limited our trajectory of creatives. because we're given the title creative to be creative,
Sure.
innovative. You know, we shouldn't just be taking what's a trend and associating it with a brand. You know,
Yeah.
fast fashion needs to die as fast as retweeting.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting comment. We've got Mei Ling listening, and Mei Ling is a famous atelier in Trinidad and Tobago. 50 years she's been around, and dressed all the celebrities in the world, and
Incredible.
so somebody as well who's been around for decades, and you keep going forward. It's not about the latest greatest fabrics. It's about following your silhouettes and changing along with your market. No different than yourself as well, where the artists are constantly changing. The music vision is constantly changing. And I like the comment you said where you can't use the latest technology as a crutch. You really have to make sure at the end of the day, the client, that you're working with is getting their story across, or, in
Right.
Megan's case, the celebrities and the various people that she dresses as well, are looking fantastic. And it's not not a
Right.
matter of, look at this latest bling I've got on me. Don't look at the garment. So I think there's a lot of similarities. So it's an interesting comment. And I've actually heard that from a number of filmmakers, on technology and on how amazing it is, editing software aside, and camera, what they can do. But
Right.
I'm thankful to hear that from you as well.
Yeah, I mean it is good, but I consider myself to be a sustainable filmmaker. Like I don't want to over exceed the budget because of my expectations. That's just not the way I would rather work, because you don't need it. You know, you shouldn't need 5 lenses to shoot one shot. It's
Yeah,
like, make up your mind, make a decision and move forward.
yeah,
You know, and similar to what we were just talking about with the designers, I think that if you build it with complete intention, it'll turn into what it needs to turn into.
sure.
Because I think we've used reverse osmosis in a way with celebrities. They're wearing no name brands and making it the next big brand.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas before the celebrities were wearing the high end, the Gucci's, the Louis, the Pradas, the Dior's, the whatever, the Tom, like all these massive name brands.
yeah.
But from a consumer perspective, we're just not satisfied with the attention that they're giving us. You
Sure.
know, so now it's like we're looking for that filmmaker, we're looking for that designer that spent a year on a handcrafted cut and sew garment to
Mhm.
give them our money, to value their creation.
Yeah,
um, at least that's where I invest my money. I love, small designers that need someone like me to be wearing their product.
yeah. Wow, wow,
I'm not
wow.
a big fan of brands and labels and all that stuff.
Who actually makes the decision on getting a lot of sun here? Sorry, Marvin. Who
It's
actually makes
okay.
the design on the apparel and the fashion used in a Drake video or an Usher video or J Balvin?
Most of the artists that you've named have their own personal stylists
Okay.
that often will work with the director on, what they see the artist in. But oftentimes, like Drake has his own stylist, Usher has his own stylist, Jay has his own stylist, as they should, because they're protecting the integrity of their brand.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't want to put, yeah. It's like I would hate to see an artist in an unethical product that doesn't align with their brand.
Yeah, 100%. No, 100%. Especially J Balvin, which I don't know if many people know J
Incredible
Balvin.
stylist,
I'm sorry.
incredible style,
Yeah.
incredible style.
If I'm not mistaken, out of Medellin, Colombia. I was in Colombia a
Hmm.
while ago, but Colombia, incredible, massive following, but very much in the color than North America, or let alone European or whatever have you. Just another question in the 7 minutes we've got left. Inspiration for you. Where does it come from?
Um, Most recently, my inspiration has come from my reflection. Ultimately, because I don't want to seek external inspiration to find internal inspiration. So I try to just, wake myself up every day and look myself in the mirror and say, just be better. You know, a lot of people like Kobe, Nipsey Hussle, the late great fallen soldiers that we've often so followed, they left messages and like trinkets for us. So I try to find inspiration in the past because, things are going in the trajectory of the future of where they've already been.
Right.
And in terms of the answers are in the past, they're not in the future.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for answers and solutions to problems. So a lot of my inspiration comes from books, stranger conversations, in the unknown is where I'm inspired.
Wow. No, I love that. Yeah, because we all get it differently, whether it's through our travels or, not necessarily the competition, but or outside of industries as well. Um, and I don't travel as much as you do, obviously, but your favorite city and favorite location, what would be a hidden gem for you if you could share with us?
One of the greatest places I've ever been in the world would have to be Pai in Thailand or Chiang Mai in Thailand. Just because it's like a majestic world that I spent a lot of time in 2017. I really got to understand synergy, energies, and duality in terms of life, the give and take, the yin and yang energy. And
Right.
it's so removed from what North America has trained me for.
Yeah.
So it just allowed me to ground myself in the world,
Yeah.
which for me is like, I'm a very holistic creator. So if it's not real, I won't be present. I just can't do fake anything. It just doesn't really resonate with me.
Right.
And it's also like quite phenomenally, it's cheap. Everyone there is super, super supportive.
Yeah.
One of the greatest questions that was ever asked to me in Thailand was, I went there with the expectation of North American society was going to traject me like, hey, I shoot Drake's music videos, like treat me like, no, that didn't fly over there at all. It was more of, who are you? Not what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
And that changed the way I started looking at everyone that I started working with.
Yeah.
I didn't care to see the resume before I cared to ask them, like, how is your family? How is your mother? How are your kids? How is your significant partner? How is your dog? How are you?
Yeah.
Those things kind of allowed me to really repurpose the way I approach my work. Yeah, it really changed my collaboration and how I spend my energy.
So that actually ties into my next question. What would be a signature Jordan Oram thing that you would see in all of your videos, or is there some little, hidden gem that is very specific to you in your work?
I mean, I hope the feeling. I think I hope that, whatever work I do, you feel it, you're excited about it, you want to watch it again, you want to listen to the song. Because a lot of the work that I've done has been manifested through just life. It hasn't been specific. I want to do. The only thing I really manifested was Drake, but that happened because it was God's plan significantly.
Right.
But ultimately, I just wanted to feel good, look good, feel better.
Yeah.
Is definitely the best thing. And,
yeah.
It's going to be warm.
Yeah. So our final question, and in the couple of minutes we've got left, if again we have a category, as I mentioned before, best student fashion film of the year. What advice do you have for young filmmakers, wanting to be the next Jordan Oram?
The best advice. Oh, this is a good one. The best advice I would give to any student filmmakers would be contact me as soon as possible. Ask me like the 3 questions that you're terrified to ask anybody, and start off with what your expectations are for yourself in 10 years. A lot of what I'm currently working on is for the next generation. I also want to leave some trinkets because I think that, it's one thing to have gems and wisdom and knowledge, but if you can't leave it for the next generation, it's pointless. I was once 14 years old, 15, 16, 20 years old, lost and wanting someone to advise me on what direction to take in my career.
Yeah.
The first thing I would tell you is lose your ego. If you don't ask, the answer is no. And if you don't do it, you didn't do it yet. And those 3 things, it's like we just have to stop being so afraid to try.
Yeah.
Because you have to fail as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So you can get to where you really are trying to get to. Closing the gap, the ear glass method. If you want to be here and you're currently here, at some point you got to get here. But if you don't take that step forward, so many people in the year 2020 are trying to just buy a $3 lottery ticket and get here. But if you've never counted the pennies that it took to make $1 million, you'll never appreciate the $1 million.
Yeah.
So
that.
every word counts, every character matters. And all it takes is $1 and a dream. That's like those are my words.
I love that. In the last minute we've got, your personal mentor.
Yeah. Oh, my personal mentor.
Yeah.
Man, I've got so many. Currently, I'm working with a gaffer. His name's Christian Epps. He's a phenomenal gaffer. I've been looking up to him for the last 10 years, and now he's my gaffer. And he's a huge mentor. He's a man. He's full of wisdom, guidance, inspiration, and he grounds me in terms of how I approach him as a collaborator. It's not about, hey, can you do this job for me? It's how can we make the best project together? So yeah, he's currently someone I admire and keep close to my right hand.
And before Instagram kicks us off, you got the final comment. You've got a special project coming up. I know
Yeah.
you probably can't talk too much about it, but what can you share with us on this special project?
I'm writing a book. Well, I just finished writing my first literary book that encompasses all things from male vulnerability, overcoming fear, self-doubt, self-improvement, refinement is what I consider it. It's a book to annually celebrate my 30th year on life, and it's a book that returns to nature. Intensely. It's not just a typical book that is on shelves. It's meant to return back to nature. And that's a little trinket of information that you'll see in the next couple of days. I'm super excited to share it. I've been working on it for the last 7 months, self-published, self-written, and it's going to be, I consider it to be the next Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, Alchemist, 48 Laws of Power, just from my perspective. I'm super, super, super excited about it.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, stay tuned. It's coming soon.
Fantastic. Well, you heard it here first. Jordan, I honestly, I can't thank you enough for your wisdom, for friendship, participation, everything on sharing with us not only your clout with CANIFFF this year, but your wisdom, your inspiration to the other filmmakers. And again, I can't thank you enough for your time to literally for me to have an hour of your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for everyone that chimed in. I see a lot of my friends in here showing love. That's what we do in 2020 on my side. We show love, we show up, we show support for one another. And ultimately, let's break the wall. Let's break the gap. Let's close the gap. Let's overcome all obstacles and barriers that are formed against us. And let's continue to strive to increase the intention behind Canada on a global scale. Ultimately, let's just let's strive. Let's do better.
I love that. You're very much leading the way with us. So thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a good one.